Hey guys, FaZe here, back with another Whispers of the Old Gods review video. Exciting news, guys! Again, all of the cards have actually been spoiled, so that means a lot of reviews await. And yeah, I could not be more excited. Format's going to be the same as always, just like last time and the time before that. We take a look at a card, make some notable observations, and try to assess whether the card is good in, or playable at least, in Standard, Wild, and in the Arena where applicable, of course. There's a lot of cards to cover, so I'll try to keep things brief and not go on long tangents so much as I've, done in previous videos. With all that being said, guys, let's get right into the cards. First card we have for today is a Shifter Zerus. It's a 1-mana 1/1 legendary minion. Each turn this is in your hand, transform it into a random minion. Now the first thing that pops up in your head when you look at this card is that it's a fun card. Obviously it's designed to be fun, but the thing about this card is that it actually gets better the more turns you hold it in your hand, just because it goes through more iterations, and the more and more likely you are to hit a minion that you would want to play in any given situation. Now I've done some rough skimming over the cards, and it turns out most of the minions are in the game currently are actually 3 and 4 mana. So it's a late game card essentially, because it gets better as the game goes on, because it can turn into that late game bomb. But it's inconsistent, so why would you want to play this if you could play something like Ysera, if that's what you actually want in your deck? Because, well, you can play this guy earlier, potentially, in a worse matchup. But I feel like the inconsistency of the card is not something you really want. You can't also, have any potential synergies with this, just because it's so all over the place. And because of that, I don't think it's going to see competitive play. I might end up eating my words, but I'm really doubtful this card will see competitive play in Standard or in Wild. It's a fun card though, and yeah, fun cards are, they also have their place in the game. In the Arena, depends on what legendaries you get, because sometimes legendaries can be pretty bad, but not a top tier pick in Arena by any stretch of the mark. Next card we have is the Hooded Acolyte. 4-mana 3/6 priest minion. Whenever a character is healed, give your Cthun +1/+1 wherever it is. Now the thing that makes this card good, it's not its ability. Actually, it's just the body of it. Its ability is actually just a bonus. It's Cthulhu decks are made with Cthulhu decks, you want to survive until late in the game, because that's when you get to actually play Cthulhu. And the body is very defensive. It reflects that game plan very, very well. It has the water elemental body, and the 6 health is actually makes it near impossible to kill when you first play it. When you play it on curve, that is. Priests actually don't have a lot of 4-drops. They have Acolyte, they have Holy Champion. If this was a 3/6, it would be overpowered. So yeah, just because it's insanely hard to kill it, and that's when the hero power of the priest becomes active, when you actually stick something on your board and you start healing it up. So overall, I think it's a very good card. It will see play definitely in Standard. In Wild, I think it's it's pretty good. It has the water elemental body again, which stops the early aggression, and it's something that's not easily removable. So it could even see play in Wild, provided Cthulhu decks in general turn out to be reasonably strong. And in the Arena, this card will not be there, just because, again, Cthulhu cards will not be available in the Arena. Next card we have is the Twilight Darkmender. 5 mana for a 6/5. Again, a priest minion, rare this time. Battlecry: if your Cthulhu has at least 10 attack, restore 10 health to your hero. You guys don't need me to tell you that 10 life is actually a lot of life. And the thing is, you actually pay almost nothing for this ability, because 5 mana for a 6/5 is about what you would expect to get for 5 mana. Its stat distribution is a bit poor, in the sense that it's aggressively statted, so it doesn't fit, you know, the priest game plan with stick a high health minion on the board and then start healing it. But that's why you have the Hooded Acolyte to clean up any early game minions before you drop this, before you drop the Twilight Darkmender to actually ensure that it trades up. But yeah, all that being said, 10 health is a lot of health. Also, there, like with all the cards revealed, we now know that it's generally going to be possible to get this on curve, I believe, without too much trouble. So if you really need, you know, the 10 life on curve, this will be possible. So you don't really pay anything for the ability. It's just kind of tacked on for free, and that's really strong. 10 life is a lot of life. It will see play. It could even see play in standard just because of the 10 life. 10 life is a ridiculous amount of life for a minion of this size. Definitely going to see play in standard, and again, in the arena, Cthun cards will not be available. Next one we have is a Journey Below. It's a 1 mana. It's a 1 mana rogue rare spell. Discover a Death Rattle card. Now, the most comparable card to this one is actually Raven Idol. Raven Idol does the exact same thing, except Journey Below is restricted to Death Rattle minions. So it kind of goes with the theme of the Death Rattle oriented rogue with Undercity Hucksters and Unearthed Raptors. Generally, you can play this on turn 1. The fact that it's 1 mana is very good, I believe, just because you don't have a lot of early game plays as rogue. You don't really have anything you want to play on turn 1. So yeah, it's a curve filler. It's pretty good. It fits the new Death Rattle oriented rogue, and I'm pretty happy about that, just because the Blade Flurry nerf is really bad. For those of you that don't know, a Blade Flurry is being increased to 4 mana, and it doesn't deal face damage anymore. It doesn't damage the enemy hero. So the fact that we have a card that enables, like a powerful card that enables the new type of a rogue is actually a very, very good. And I like that. Definitely playable in standard. In Wild, maybe Wild is not the place for rogue currently. It might just be a little bit too. Actually, it's even good in Wild. It's even good in Wild. The Museum Curator is playable in Wild. You know, it's in Priest, but I would venture to say that Journey Below is actually better than Museum Curator, because Museum Curator is actually irrelevant on the board. You kind of just pay the 1 extra mana to gain 2 life most of the time. It doesn't really do anything on the board, is what I'm trying to say. So the fact that Journey from Below costs 1 less mana is actually a big deal. I think the card is playable. I think it might even be playable in Wild. And in the arena is Raven Idol has won me more than one arena game, let me tell you that much. And I expect a Journey from Below to do the same. Next card we have is Power Word Tentacles. It's a 5 mana priest spell. Give a minion +2/+6. So I'm just gonna outright say it. This is a pretty bad card. There's no need to really waste too much time on it. The closest thing I compare it to is Oasis Snapjaw. It's 1 more mana than Oasis Snapjaw. Yeah, you get, you know, sort of like a charge effect, but it's conditional because you need the board. And it's 1 less stats than Oasis Snapjaw. I just don't think. I think it's too overcosted to see any amount of play. I might end up eating my words, but I don't think so. This seems pretty expensive to be played. So yeah, in constructed at least. In arena, I mean, it's okay. It's nowhere near the power of something like Valen's Chosen. Valen's Chosen comes down 2 turns earlier. It's 2 less life, albeit, but it has spell damage. And it's 2 less mana. Like, it's... Powered Tentacles is not a great card, even in the arena, I don't think. The great thing about Valen's Chosen is that it's relevant on turn 3. Powered Tentacles is not really relevant on turn 5, I don't think. Not that much. Next card we have is Disciple of Cthun. One of the better Cthun cards, I believe. The closest thing we have to this is Argent Horse Rider, believe it or not. Argent Horse Rider, it comes down, it usually trades into something like a Knife Juggler or whatever, and then it's a 2/1. So it's essentially the same card, except this can bypass taunts. It can, you know, it can, yeah, it's just strictly better for the most part than Argent Horse Rider because it's more flexible. The only instance in which Argent Horse Rider is actually better than a Disciple of Cthun is when you want to go face, because then you put the weight on your opponent to actually deal with the Divine Shield, right? And Disciple of Cthun is not really meant to go face because it's a Cthun card. Again, Cthun decks in general want to control the board until they can drop Cthun and win the game. So, yeah. For the most part, it's a better Argent Horse Rider that buffs Cthun, and that is... It's really good. It's scary good, actually. Yeah, this card will see play in Standard and in Wild, believe it or not. This is a very good minion to have in Wild because, well, there's a lot of early game in Wild. This is going to be a very useful most of the time. Again, in the arena, Cthun card not going to be playable. Next card we have is the Rogue Common spell, a Shadow Strike. Deal 5 damage to an undamaged character. It's pretty good. It's actually very good. 3 mana for 5 damage is quite a bit. Kind of how 4 damage for 2 mana in the face of Eviscerate is actually quite huge. This is also very big. A 5 is a very big breakpoint. When you get spell damage on Eviscerate, it actually hits so many more things. So yeah, a very, very good card. The fact that the minion has to be undamaged is, the drawback of this. But in a reasonable metagame, like a mid-range metagame, 5 is generally going to be enough to deal with the minion. Maybe you have to send your face with the Wicked Knife in, but 5 damage is a lot of damage. Again, so pretty strong card. Going to see play in everywhere, really. And I'm really happy Rogue is getting all these good cards because, again, I was pretty worried with the Blade Flurry nerf. Going to see play in Wild and in Standard, I believe. And in the arena, this will push Rogues over the top, as, Well, yeah, it'll keep Rogue in the top 3 classes just because it's a common card. Okay, next card we have is the Darkshire Alchemist. It's a priest 5 mana minion, 4/5 body, battlecry, restore 5 health. So it's kind of like Yeti. Correct. It's kind of like a Yeti. With a flash heal on top of it, correct? And that's actually very good. The body on this is very, very big. You're not overpaying too much for the heal. You're not overpaying anything. It's just Yeti with flash heal combined. And when you combine effects on like minions like that, it makes the card stronger. Usually, just because you can pop it down as a minion whenever you need to. I think it's a very strong card. It has synergy with stuff like Alchemy, correct? Arcanine Soul Priest. And the new card that we have coming with Priest, Embrace the Shadow as well. So you can nuke something for 5 damage and play a 4/5. Yeah, it's 7 mana with the Embrace the Shadow, and it's 9 mana with Arcanine Soul Priest, but you could do that. If you really want the damage, though, I think Flash Heal is still more flexible. But Flash Heal is also not, you know, it's not usable in many situations except for face healing, and that's not what you want to be doing most of the time. And you can play this on curve and be happy with that you made like a reasonable tempo play and stalled out the game a little longer. And as Priest, you're always happy to stall out the game a little longer. I think it's a very good card. Like, it's a again, it's a combined effect. Combined effects tend to be a very strong. Definitely gonna see at least some amount of play in control-oriented Priest decks with Arcanine Soul Priest, as I mentioned, in Standard and in Wild, I believe. In Wild, you really need the healing, and there's a lot of healing. So, yeah, pretty good card. In the Arena, I think this is a subpar pick, though, because, again, in Arena, you kind of want to tempo out his Priest, get like a big dude, and then start healing him. This fulfills the healing part, but it doesn't help you actually get to that point in the game. It's kind of along the lines of Darkscale Healer. It's gonna heal, you know, if you have like a minion on board, Darkscale Healer usually heals for 4. You know, spread out, but it's kind of the same. So it's kind of like the same power level of Darkscale Healer in Arena. Maybe a bit better. Maybe a bit better because you can choose what you can heal. But yeah, it's an okay card in Arena, but definitely not a top tier pick. The next card we have is the Bladed Cultist. 1 mana, 1/2, a rogue minion, a combo, gain a +1/+1. I don't really like this card. The fact is that you can't play this on turn 1. You would have to use it with something like a backstab, right? Or like a prep, or something like that, to make it relevant in the early game, and at the same time in the late game, where it's actually very easy to combo this guy out. The fact that it's a 2/3 is irrelevant. 2/3s are mostly irrelevant past turn 3, I would say, just because 3 drops kill them. On turn 4, they're mostly just, you know, fodder on the board for bigger minions. So just because of that fact, I don't like this card very much. He's very good at stopping aggression, though. He's very good at stopping aggression, and I will say that. So just because of that, it might see play in Wild, just because you can do something like Backstab Bladed Cultist, you know, on your turn 1 to react to what your opponent is doing, to kill their 1-drop and play your own 2/3, and from that, you know, point on, you already have board control because you basically played a zombie chow. So in that sense, it's pretty good. But yeah, otherwise, not really. It's a very good card in an aggressive metagame, but not very good in the more mid-ranger, like like Druid-esque, for example, type of metagame. Yeah, that's about it. In Arena, this card is going to be pretty good. It's very much an above average card, just because. But you have to like curve out lower, and this actually helps you curve out lower. You have to get stuff like Buccaneers, a lot of deadly poisons, a lot of backstab, and if you do, this guy will help you out in, you know, the sense that, you know, he can be comboed quite nicely. So yeah, it's a pretty good card in Arena. Not like a super top tier pick. But definitely very much above average. Next card we have is Blade of Cthun. 9 mana, 4/4, destroy a minion, and add its attack and health to Cthun wherever it is. It's a rogue minion specifically, so that restricts it quite a bit. But I don't think this guy's that good. This guy is not that good, just because it's kind of like an assassinate, correct? It's like an assassinate that's slumped into a 4/4 minion, except that it buffs Cthun, correct? So the metagame that this guy is good in is like very, very slow. So it's very good in like a control-oriented metagame. Like your opponent plays Ragnaros, you kill Rag, and then you add 8 to Cthun or Ysera or whatever. Like kill Ysera and, you know, add Ysera's worth of stats to Cthun. But in a realistic metagame, this guard is not that good because, like, for you to get value out of this, it has to be a minion that's worth assassinating, generally, or imagine if Assassinate costed 1 less mana, would you play it? Sort of, but then it doesn't come out on turn 4 because it's attached to a minion, it's a 9 mana. It's really slow is what I'm trying to get at. So for that reason, not going to be played in Wild. I'm pretty sure about that. And in Standard, we have yet to see what the metagame will be, but I'm pretty sure that even in Standard, the metagame will not be that slow. And in the arena, it's a Cthulhu card. Cthulhu cards are not a thing in the arena. Next we have Emperor of Vek'Lor. 7 mana, 4/6 legendary minion, so you can only have 1 of those. But that's pretty good, just because this guy is very, very strong. It's a 7 mana, 4/6, so it has a something like a Derivative Claw body with taunt. So 7 mana, 4/6. If your Cthulhu has at least 10 attack, summon another Emperor. And the other Emperor is basically a mirror image of this Emperor, because, you know, they're twin Emperors. You're getting a 7 mana, 8/12 stats and taunt. Like, that's ridiculous. And the fact that it's on 2 bodies is actually very good as well. So it can't just be hard removed as easily. The 4 attack is actually a big minus to this. If it was like a 5/5, it probably wouldn't be that much better. But the 4 attack really hurts this, like, a lot. So you are gonna need some, you know, additional damage to actually, you know, kill off whatever trades into Twin Emperor Vek'Lor. You know, provided, again, a mid-range E metagame. But this stops aggro dead-ended strikes. If you get to turn 7, you can play this. And again, it's a very reliable that you can actually get to turn 7 and play this guy on curve and get the ability to proc. Just because we have a lot of decent Cthulhu cards already. So, as in cards that buff Cthulhu, I mean. So you're going to be likely to play this guy on curve, and on curve he is crazy good. Definitely going to see play in Standard and in Wild, I think. This is an effect that's just stops any kind of aggression from the board, at least. So they're only left with, you know, spells to kill you. And again, provided you play something like Sludge Belchers in your deck, you're probably getting to turn 7 most of the time. So very, very strong card. I believe it will see play again in arena. Not playable. Next card we have is the Twilight Geomancer. 2 mana for a 1/4 common minion. Taunt. Battlecry, give your Cthulhu taunt. I don't think this card is that good, just because Cthulhu doesn't really benefit off of having taunt. Most of the times when you play Cthulhu, it's not actually going to be on turn 10. It's going to be like on turn 15. So by that point, Cthulhu will probably be significantly above 10/10. Maybe not significantly, but around like the 12 mark, I believe. So, you know, it either doesn't get removed from the board and you get to hit your opponent in the face with it, or either you instantly win with the battle cry, or it doesn't get removed and you hit your opponent with it, or it gets removed. You know, the taunt is, if you get to hit with it, you basically win the game. And if it gets removed, it didn't matter that it had taunt, because it's not Cthulhu is not getting removed via trading into. You know, Cthulhu is going to be removed with like a hard removal effect. So the fact that it has taunt is mostly irrelevant, I believe. just because of the way Cthun works in general. So yeah, just because of that, this card is probably not playable in Standard or in Wild. Next card we have, and this one is a doozy. It's a 3-mana 3/4 warrior rare battlecry. If you control pirate, give your weapon +1/+1. So let's check out the pirates. Pirate. Pirates are actually not that many, to be honest. There is the... I don't know why, you know, the casual pirates are not popping up. There you go, Hearthstone. I knew you could do it. But yeah, the amount of pirates that there are in the game, and there's like a few more coming in. One more, I think. This card is just ridiculously strong when you get this effect off. Like, imagine that you like the effect is so powerful because if you control a weapon, that means you're already getting tempo out of it on the turn that you're supposed, you know, on the turn, because you're hitting with the weapon, presumably, correct? So this is just ridiculous. It allows you to hit now and hit next turn, and it's like it's a very big body, right? It's like a body. Like, you don't pay anything for the you don't sacrifice anything for the body, on the body for the effect. So yeah, it's a very strong card. This on its own honestly might make a pirate deck playable, because, you know, it hasn't been so far. Safe to say, it's a very strong card. It might actually make Pirate Warrior a thing, sort of. One thing to note, ship's cannon is rotating out, so no more firing the cannon, at least not in Standard. But I mean, there are other tools in the warrior class. Warrior is actually getting another pirate that is specific to them. Nuzal's First Mate, the 1-mana 1/1 common that equips a 1/3 rusty hook. So you could always play it with that. It's not that great, but it's still like a buff on a weapon. It still provides board control for the most part. It makes it more. It makes the rusty hook a lot more relevant, is what I'm trying to say. Yeah, the card is definitely very strong. It has the potential to spawn an archetype in and of itself. If pirates are strong enough, this is very good. Don't know what else to say about it, really. It's a very good card. It's a very good card. It definitely will see some experimentation in Pirate Warrior. Maybe Pirate Warrior is like, you know, kind of like Face Warrior in a sense, where you like buff a really big weapon and then you whack your opponent in the face with it a couple of times and they go boom. But we'll have to see how pirate decks turn out. This is a card that will definitely see a fair amount of play in the experimentation phase of the game. Whether or not it's good enough to be a tier 1 or tier 2 deck even remains to be seen. In the arena, again, you have to look at how many pirates you have. This is one of those cards. But even if you don't have a lot of pirates, it's like a spider tank. It's an above average card, so pretty good pick in arena as well. And in wild, I think ship's cannon can actually catch if a pirate deck is good in standard, the ship's cannon can catch up the pirate deck in wild. Yeah, because, well, it's a very powerful pirate card. Yeah, that's about it for this card, though. It's very strong, potentially archetype spawning. Next card we have is the Blackwater Pirate. This card is not so much archetype spawning. I don't think so. It's that good. It's a 4-mana 2/5 pirate. Your weapons cost 2 less. Pardon me. It's not that good, and the reason it's not that good is pirates tend to be very aggressive, correct? You have your charge pirate, you have your gain attack pirate, you have your knife juggler E effect kind of pirate, you have your pirates that buff other pirates, you have pirates that cost less, you have pirates that give your weapon attack, you have pirates with charge. Pirates are very aggressive, okay? So this is not an aggressive body, so it doesn't fit that. Also, the way weapons work is that you cannot really spam them out. You know what I mean? You can't really flood the board with them, like something like mechs, right? With Mech Warper. Or spells with like a Sorcerer's Apprentice. Right? You can't really spam all the weapons just because weapons are a card that naturally takes time to get value out of. And for that reason, I don't think this card is good. It's not playable in Standard, Wild, or... I mean, in the arena, it's sometimes going to be okay, right? You draft like 5 weapons. Even then, it's not that good, because again, it's not how weapons work. Like, you're not getting too much benefit out of this ability, and the body is very understated. So not a great pick in arena either. Next card we have is Blood to Ichor. And I like this card. It's a really good card. It's kind of like if you hit something with it, it's kind of like an Ironforged Rifleman, right? If you hit something with it and don't kill it, but it's 1 mana. Like, you remove 2 mana off of Ironforged Rifleman. That's a ridiculous card. And it synergizes well with stuff like Execute and some of the... And the next card that we're actually going to talk about, it enables Enrage effects, right? You can pop Grom with it. It's very flexible. And you can also deal 1 damage to something if there's like a 4/1 on the board. Would you pay 1 mana to remove a 4/1? I would. So it's a very flexible card. I like it. I think it's very strong. Yeah, that's about it. It can definitely see play anywhere in some sort of like mid-rangey tempo sort of warrior. Definitely a very strong card. There has been like this mid-rangey Varian Rin warrior running around lately. So that is a card that could fit quite well in there actually. Yeah, that's about it. A very good card in Standard and in Wild, I believe. Because it can kill 1-drops, so it allows you to keep up with, you know, your opponent's early game. And in the arena, it's also a very strong card because it's a ping. Warriors cannot possibly get enough pings in arena. If you give warriors, like, the more pings you give warriors, the better off they are. Because again, enabling Execute, stuff like that. Yeah, very good card in arena as well. Next card we have is Bloodhoof Brave. 4 mana, 2/6 taunt, Enrage +3 attack. This card is interesting. I'm gonna say it's okay, actually, because the 6 health on like a 4 mana minion is so huge. Again, it's basically impossible to kill a water elemental in the on like whenever it's just dropped down on the board. It's ridiculous how hard it is to kill something like that. This has the same amount of health, and it deals very well with the early game. It trades into your opponent's 3/2s, provided, you know, that's what there is on the board. So yeah, and it then buffs itself, correct? So it's an interesting card. I like it. I think it will see some experimentation. Whether or not it will, you know, after the refinement of the game has, you know, finished for the most part, when we are, you know, entering that phase into the next, you know, into the next expansion, when we're going to the next expansion, it might not be in the game by that time, but this card is definitely worth checking out. Just because it's it has a lot of health. Okay, it stops aggro pretty well, and also it synergizes very well with Blood to Ichor. You play your Bloodhoof Brave, you know, your opponent doesn't kill it, and because again, he's likely not going to kill it because it has 6 health, and he's likely not going to attack into it because then it gets enraged. So then what do? You play Blood to Ichor. You have a 5/5 taunt and a 2/2 on the next turn. That's pretty good. I like it. I like it. I like it. It's an okay card. Like, definitely not something to flip out about, but it's an okay card. And definitely going to see some experimentation. It might even see play in Wild, just because Wild is so token heavy and zooey, you know. And in the arena, it's, well, depends on what you get. If you get a lot of whirlwinds, this guy's pretty good. 4 mana, 5/5 taunt. Gotta love those. And even if you don't, it's still okay. It's still okay. Like, the 6 health is just so much health. The health is what makes this guy good. If he was at 5 health, he would be unplayable. But the 6 health makes it playable in the arena, and a good pick for the most part, I think. Next card we have is a Malkorok. God, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. 7 mana, 6/5 warrior legendary. Battlecry, equip a random weapon. So the closest I compare, the card I closest, associate this with is something like Fire Elemental. It has the same body. It's 1 more mana, but you get more hits out of the weapon. So if, the way I see it, right? The way I see it, if the weapon that you get from this is 3 or more attack, it's good. If it's 2 or less attack, that's kind of pushing it. And I actually did some rough stats on the weapons. Actually, exactly half of the weapons have a 3 or more attack, and exactly half of the weapons have 2 or less attack. The thing is that when you hit like a Light's Justice, you're really unhappy. When you hit like an Argent Lance, a Cog Hammer, when you hit it like a Sword of Justice, Sword of Justice is not that bad, but you're not getting the tempo out of this card. When you hit like a Fiery War Axe or like an Eagle Hornbow, then you're happy, right? And if you hit like anything above, you are, flipping out of your seat for the most part. Get like an Arcanite Reaper, a Deathspite, a Gorehowl. I don't believe the 2/2 Battle Axe is spawnable for Makarov. I think it's only collectible weapons, but I digress. This actually would make the card worse. It would make it less than 50%. So, yeah. I think just the inconsistency of it is going to make this card unplayable. Or not unplayable, it's still a good card. It's just not constructed worthy, I think. Yes, sometimes you're going to get something insane, but it's, I don't know, 50% to get something with, 2 or less attack. Even if you get something like Doomhammer, are you really that happy? I mean, maybe. But Doomhammer is like a face card, right? It's not really a board control card, because you take 1,000,000 damage if you want to kill anything with it. So it's a subpar card, I think. I think it's not going to see too much play. It might see some amount of play, but just because, like, again, 7 drops, there's like a hole in 7 drops, just because Dr. Boom is going to be rotating out. But I don't think this guy is that great. In Wild, probably not good, just because it's very slow. You take face damage on top of it. By turn 7, as a warrior, you hope to have like decent control of the board, otherwise you're dead. Because you can't, my point is, you can't start hitting into things on turn 7, because that's way too late to be hitting into things. That's when things become big, and when you hit into them, you die. So yeah, all in all, not a very good card. Don't expect it to see a lot of play in Standard or in Wild. In Arena, it's decent. It's kind of like a Fire Elemental, right? So it really depends on, again, what you get in Arena versus this guy. But as a standalone, he's pretty good. Definitely consider picking him if you see him. Next card we have is the Crazed Worshipper. It's a 5 mana 3/6 taunt. Whenever this minion takes damage, give your Cthun +1/+1 wherever it is. It's interesting. It's interesting, but not that good, unfortunately. It's a Fen Creeper for the most part, yeah. It's a Fen Creeper with Cthun buff. That's how you can look at it. Is Fen Creeper good enough? No. Will it be good enough? I doubt it. Like on turn 5, the 3 attack kind of... The reason Belcher was played... the reason Belcher is actually played in Wild right now is because it's so annoying to deal with. It takes... Like, the fact that it takes 2 attacks to get through is what makes Belcher great. That Creeper can be eaten up in 1 hit. That's not very common, but... Again, like the 3 attack on this doesn't really... It's kind of late. Even it's kind of late to kill minions, I think, because the 3 attack is kind of inconsequential on whenever you hit the 5 mana stage in the game. Even Belcher usually doesn't really kill anything, right? It's a very defensive card, but it doesn't really deal with the board. It kind of softens it up a bit, but doesn't really deal with it. So, yeah. Probably not good enough. There are better versions. There are better ways that exist to buff your Cthun, I believe, and not have to play this guy. He's kind of like a buff Cthun +2/+2, but on a death rattle, sort of, just because you have to get it hit. But just because of the Fen Creeper stat line, I don't think this guy is going to see that much play. Fen Creeper is actually a subpar card in Arena, if that, well, tells you something. And the Arena, this card will not be played just because, again, it's a Cthun card. Cthun cards will not be in the Arena. In Wild, you have Belcher. There's no need to play this guy. And in Standard, maybe if you're looking for that extra bit of a defensiveness, because the metagame is too aggressive, maybe. And even then, there's probably better options out there. Probably just run the Cthulhu's Disciple, right? To keep control of the early game a lot better. Yeah, that's about it for the Crazed Worshipper. Probably not going to see too much play. Next we have Forbidden Ancient. It's one of the forbidden cards, which, their overall theme is flexibility. Battlecry, spend all your mana, gain +1/+1 for each mana spent. So it's pretty bad, I think. The fact that it's just like a 1/1 on turn 1 or 2/2 on turn 2 is like so inconsequential. It starts to get good on turn 5 because 5/5 for 5 is kind of okay. 6/6 for 6 is okay as well. 7/7 for 7 is generally not that great, just because at that point you kind of want to be splitting your mana up a little bit, and that helps. Forbidden Ancient helps with that, but the thing is, if the card is supposed to be flexible, but it's not good on turn 1, 2, 3, and 4, then it's not flexible, right? So you don't want to play this card, and that's why I think it's pretty bad. Definitely not going to see play in Wild. Not going to see play in a Standard either, I think. The only reason this might see even a fringe amount of play is because Druid can ramp up. And when they ramp up, they get, this guy is better. But you could say that about any minion, right? You could just put that minion that you want into your deck. But just because of the ramp, this guy might see a tiny bit of play. Definitely not a good card, though. And in the Arena, Druids curve out very well anyway. In the Arena, they have, premium 2s and 3s, not in 4s. The 4 is rare in the face of Savage Combatant, but they still have 4s. They have Keepers of the Grove. Keeper of the Grove being nerfed, but still going to be an okay card in Arena. And 5 is Druid of the Claw. Basically, Druid is very good at curving out in the Arena and does not need help doing so, is what I'm trying to say. So, I don't know, maybe you get some really bad epics and you're forced to pick this guy, but you're definitely not too happy about it. Our next card we have is another Druid card, Fandral Staghelm, 4 mana, 3/5. Your choose one cards have both effects combined. It's a very good card. You know, Living Roots, kind of inconsequential, deal 2 damage on 1/1 saplings, but, you know, sometimes you need that. Raven Idol turns into insane card advantage. It turns into an Arcane Intellect that you don't draw from your deck, which, you know, helps the fatigue aspect of the game. Not that you're going for fatigue as Druid, but the fact that they are discovered is actually very good. Robocub is now a 3/3 taunt. If you want to play that in Wild, I don't think you do, but still. We have a, you know, some of them don't work that well. For example, Druid of the Saber, it gains stealth and charge, but if you're charging out, you don't really get the stealth. Power of the Wild is one of the great ones, though. Wrath, deal 3 and draw a card. Is pretty good. Druid of the Flame, 5/5. Grove Tender. Keeper of the Grove. Silence and deal 2 damage. So all of these are actually very, very strong for the most part. Like, yeah, pretty good. The thing is though, it has been confirmed by Mike Donay, I think, that the ordering of the playing of the choose one effects will be, and I quote, in the more beneficial way to use. So for example, if you play Power of the Wild, you get the Panther, and then you get the 1/1s, right? So you buff up the Panther, so it's actually a 4/3 standalone, and, you know, a 4/6 Fandral Staghelm. Another example would be Keeper of the Grove. You first silence the minion, because some minions, for example, have Divine Shield, so you would want to first silence the minion and then deal 2 damage to it. Or in the case of Acolyte of Pain, you know, you want to first silence it and then deal 2 damage to it. Or again, in Sludge Belcher's case, you get my point, okay? So the effects will be in the order which is most beneficial to you. So yeah, I think this guy is actually quite good. It's very strong. It's along the power level of Brand Bronzebeard, because you get the 2 effects. So it's kind of like the card triggers twice, essentially. The thing is, with this guy, you have to play choose one effects that are very good. Both of them are very good. For example, if you play an Ancient of Lore, and bear with me, I know Ancient of Lore is getting nerfed. If you play an Ancient of Lore, you only get it for like the card draw, really. Like, the health doesn't really matter. Druid of the Claw is very good because you get a 4/6 taunt with charge. So Ancient of War is decent. Like, it gets BGH'd, but, well, BGH getting nerfed. So it's a lot less, you know, bothersome, I guess. It's a lot less of an issue. So again, Nourish is really card draw for the most part anyway. If you're playing it with Fandral, you're already on 9 mana, so you don't really need the mana. So it's weaker than it looks actually broken, but there are only, not every choose one effect is useful all of the time, is what I'm trying to say. So for that reason, this card is just very good. It's just very good. It's not busted in any sort of way. You can't play it with scenarios, right? You can't, you know, end up with 2 4/4 treants and a 5/7 Fandral in the same turn. But yeah, like, the only cards that this is good with is, we could go over them, is Living Roots is good, Raven Idol is good, Power of the Wild is good, Wrath is good. That's already like a lot of pretty good cards. Druid of the Flame is good, 3 mana for 5/5. Keeper of the Grove getting nerfed, not that great. Fear the Claw is good. So enough cards are good to make Fandral really, really good. Yeah, that's about it. You're gonna see a lot of play, I believe. And in Wild as well, if Druid is viable in Wild, like the new version of Druid without the combo. So that's about it for this guy. Oh, and in the arena, I mean, depends on how many cards you have with the choose one effect. If you have like a lot of Wraths, this guy is your guy. But if you don't, it's like, you know, a Trog, for example. Yeah, for the most part. It's pretty good. It's okay in arena. There's like worse legendaries to get in arena. But yeah, definitely playable in standard and in wild. We're nearing the end. Bear with me, guys. We have the third to last card, the Silithid Swarmer. It's a 3-mana 3/5 rare that can only attack if your minion, pardon me, if your hero has attacked this turn. So you need this with very high durability weapons. You need this with something like Muster for Battle is a good example. When you play a Muster for Battle, and you have like a Silithid Swarmer, like you coin into the Swarmer and then you play Muster, that's really good. Like the thing is that 3/5 on 3 mana is ridiculous. Okay, it kills anything that comes before it. It stays alive absolutely, 99% of the time. So yeah, it's a very strong card if you get it to attack. But you really need to make sure that you have it set up. So even something like Muster for Battle is inconsistent because all of a sudden you can't play your 3/5. So I think the only class that this is playable in is Rogue. And again, that's not a bad thing. Rogues are getting some love, I guess. Because in Rogue, you always have a weapon, alongside you. You may not want to use it on that turn, but I mean, I would use it for a 3-mana 3/5. So yeah, it's basically a rogue card, so let's evaluate it from that perspective. 3-mana 3/5, really good. But it's only reasonable in rogue. The drawback of this card is really, really punishing. If you do not attack this turn, it's really bad. So in Wild, is it playable? I would say it could be, honestly. Again, 3/5 deals with a lot of things. So even in Wild, this could see like a reasonable amount of play. In Standard, definitely pretty good. And in the arena, again, if you're playing a rogue, this card is very good. But if you're playing like a warrior or druid, you might want to shy away from this card. Okay. The second to last card that we have is a Feral Rage, and it's a pretty simple one. It's a 3-mana, a druid, a common. It's pretty good. Did I say it's pretty good? It's not good. 3 mana, choose one, give your hero a +4 attack this turn, or gain 8 armor. So it's kind of like a worse Shadow Bolt, right? Because you take the face damage. Or it's a worse Healing Touch. Yeah, you can go over 30 life, but are you really playing this on turn 3 to go over 30 life? I don't think so. Druid doesn't have any way to interact with armor the way Warrior does, so armor is like only slightly better than life in that case. So both sides of this card are, pretty mediocre, pretty bad. You really want to be playing this with Fandral. That in that case, it turns into a pretty good card, but it's only a pretty good card because you still get stopped by taunts. So I don't think this card is playable. I think it's just too weak. The two individual sides of the card are not strong enough to be played on their own, and for that reason, it's pretty weak. Not gonna see play in Standard or in Wild. And in the arena, you're sometimes going to take this and be somewhat sad, but it's an okay card in arena. It's removal, for the most part. It's what you're going to use it as. And removal in Arena is pretty scarce. It's nothing new. You know, like 4 damage removal in Arena from Druid is nothing new. But it's a pretty good card in Arena just because it's removal. Removal is more valuable than minions. And the last card we have for today, and it's a good one. It's 3 mana 2/5 a beast, Carrion Grub. Now, we talked about this. 5 health on turn 3, the same way as 6 health on turn 4, is ridiculously hard to remove just because there are no minions that are playable with that stat line that deal with that kind of thing. And this curves right into Houndmaster. Okay, it curves right into Houndmaster. So you basically guarantee that if you curve out, your Houndmaster hits. And Houndmaster on curve is ridiculous. Okay, if you play Houndmaster on curve, it's basically a 6/5 taunt with 2/2, with like the 2/2 part of it having charge. Yeah, it's ridiculous. So for that reason, Carrion Grub is actually quite good, quite good, and this might actually bring back mid-range hunter in Wild, just because mid-range hunter in Wild has been stopped dead in its tracks because of Secret Paladin. Secret Paladin curves out way better, and their 6-drop is way better. Well, not way better, but it just disrupts the 6-turn play of Hunter in the face of Savannah Highmane. But yeah, that's about it for the card. In the arena, like a 3 mana 2/5 is not great, but I mean, Druid of the Flame is playable in the arena. You can play it as a 5/2. It doesn't really fit the Hunter theme in arena, which is to like go face and hero power and win the game. But it's, again, if you have like a couple of Houndmasters, this guy is ridiculous. And yeah, so that's about it for the review, guys. Wow, we got through it. If you stuck through the whole review, congratulations. I would give you a hug. We are at 57 minutes right now. Apologies for the review taking so long. There are a lot of cards. I did my best to keep it brief. I will try to do better next time, I promise. But all that being said, let me know what you guys think about the cards, about the expansion as a whole. What are you excited to play? Which cards do you think are horrible? Which cards, are you very hyped about? And let me know, do you agree with my opinions or not? And as a whole, how did the review seem to you? Did you enjoy it? If you have any feedback, feel free to leave it in the comments below. I will read all of them, as I always do. And yeah, that's about it. Thanks for watching, guys. It was a long one. Thank you so much, and I will see you in the next video.